So I'm going to hit record just so y'all know. Okay. All right. So first of all, this week, final exams, there's 21 questions, and I have the final exam right in front of me. So as I'm doing this review, I'm referring back to this final exam. So I'm trying to give you as much information as I can without giving you the exact question, right? These are the different AKFs that are going to be on the final exam. And if you watch that video from the final exam review, this is what I showed you. So I did go through a couple of questions on that final exam review. If you want like the short version and you don't want to do the long like study guide, this is just kind of like a quick, hey, these are the things that you need to know. Okay. So I'm going to start with this question. Okay. So I want to talk about factoring, or I want to talk about actually solving. So in these, there's going to be a question about what is the solution? And so since this is a quadratic, you're going to probably have to use the quadratic formula. I would probably suggest having this written down on my paper just because it's going to be the easiest way to do it. So this is the quadratic formula. I can't factor this one, so I'm going to have to use that quadratic formula. So if it asks for the solution to a quadratic equation, this is what you're going to do. Okay. And this is one of the questions that is on the final exam. Not this particular one, but type of question. The numbers are just a little different. Okay. So remember, I've got A, B, and C. A, B, and C. And so I'm going to plug in here. So I'm going to get -10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times -4 all over 2 times 1. And then we're going to simplify. So we're going to get -10 on the outside plus or minus the square root. 10 squared is going to give you 100. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times -4 gives you +16 divided by 2. I'm still going to simplify. So I'm going to simplify what's underneath the radicals. So that's going to give me -10 plus or minus the square root of 116 divided by 2. Now, if everything on the outside is divisible by 2, then I would simplify. But since I can't, I can only simplify what's underneath this radical. So back in Unit 1, we talked about simplifying radicals. So I want to list out factors of 116 and see if any of those are perfect squares. So factors of 116, we do 2, and then that's going to be 2 times what gives me 116. I go into my calculator. I'm going to go ahead and open up this calculator really quick. Sorry. And if you hear anything in the background, it's my dog, so I'm sorry in advance. Come on. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay, so as that's opening, sorry about that. If you don't know what factors of 116 are, you can go into your calculator and you can type 116 divided by x, and that'll pull it up. No, on the exam, you don't have to show work. There are 21 multiple choice questions. However, remember, you do have to be on the Zoom. So like if your teacher sees you, I'm not saying that, you cheat, but if your teacher would see you, like, taking a picture of it or something like that, then they can assume that you're cheating, and then that's just like a whole bad thing. So just make sure that you know how to do it. Yes, you can use your calculator. Absolutely. Yeah. What's other ones? Yeah, that's fine. Like I personally use like the TI-83 calculator. Here, I'll show you what I use. You share. Give me 20 seconds. Let me just do the whole screen. There we go. So I use this calculator. I downloaded a TI-83 from Google. So it's pretty much does everything that I need it to do. Like for instance, if I wanted to factor this or find factors of this, I would type that into my calculator. And so that would give me 58. If I want to divide that up, that's going to give me 29. So I know that I'm going to have two twos. So I'm going to pull out one of them. So this will be -10 plus or minus 2 root 29 divided by 2. And remember how I said earlier, you can only divide if everything on the outside is divisible by what's in the denominator. So if I take -10 and divide it by 2, I'm going to get -5. 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then we leave that 29 underneath the radical. So this would have an answer of -5 plus or minus the square root of 29. And sorry that took so long for me to pull that calculator up. But yes, you can use an online calculator. If you want to use Desmos, that's okay too. Good questions. And just keep them coming when you think of them. All right, so looking at this next problem, long division and synthetic division. There are 2 problems over this. And yeah, there's 2 problems over this. So I'm going to show you how to do both ways. So for long division, sorry, I have a lot of people joining. All right, so for long division, it's going to look like this. You're going to put what's in the top underneath the division line with x plus 4 on the outside. And then you're going to only look at the first term, like this term, and then you're going to look at this term. So you're going to say to yourself, what times x will give you 3x squared? Well, 3x will give you that, right? So then you're going to take this and multiply by everything on the outside. So 3x times x gives me 3x squared. 3x times 4 gives me 12x. And now I'm going to change my sign and draw my line. So I'm going to subtract. And so when I take 3x squared minus 3x squared, that cancels. And 5x minus 12x is going to give me -7x. And then you're going to say to yourself, what times x will give me -7x? Well, -7, right? So -7 times x gives me -7x. -7 times 4 gives me -28. I'm going to change my sign and draw my line. These will cancel. And I'll get -48 minus -28. And that'll give me -20. I can't repeat this process because nothing times x will give me -20, right? So I'm going to take this -20, and that is my remainder. So I'm going to say -20 divided by the stuff on the outside. And then I'm done. Okay, so with long division, you really have to make sure that you're organized, and you really have to make sure that you repeat those steps over and over again. Most of the time, people don't make a mistake up here on this first term, but they make a mistake when they subtract. Okay, so you got to make sure that you have that parentheses around that with that negative on the outside. Okay. I'm also going to show you the synthetic way. So synthetic division only works if your coefficient of your divisor is 1 and the exponent is also 1. So that's the only way it works. So what I'm going to do is change the sign of this guy and put him in the little jail cell. And I'm going to list out all of these numbers in order. If one of these terms was missing, so like let's say there wasn't a 5x, it was just 3x squared minus 48, I would have put a 0 right here. So just keep that in mind. So I'm going to bring down that first term. I'm going to multiply. I'm going to add these together. I'm going to multiply. And I'm going to add these together. I'm going to go one less than the exponent that was listed right here. -7 minus 20 over x plus 4. Notice how this is the same thing as what we got here. Okay, so you can do it either way. It doesn't matter. The only time it matters is if the coefficient is bigger than 1 and the exponent is bigger than 1. Stop. The way this is going to be asked is it's going to say something along the lines of this divided by this. And they're going to say, what is p of x if p of x minus 20 over x plus 4. Okay, so what they're looking for p of x is these first two terms. They could also ask you something like this. What is q of x if 3x minus 7 plus q of x? And this is talking about what is the remainder. Okay, you need to know that notation. Okay, 2 questions over long division and synthetic division, and they're just like this. Okay. All right. Remember, there's only 21 questions on here, so you really got to make sure that you know how to do that long division, synthetic division. You can't just ignore it. Okay. You can stop me if you got questions or you need me to talk about something. I have 2 more topics that I'm going to go over, and then I'm going to start just taking questions. So just let me know. All right, binomial expansion. There is, I think, one of these questions on the final. Y'all seem to have done pretty well on this. I don't know. It should be pretty good. So if it asks you what is the expanded form of this, you're going to use the binomial expansion. Jayla, what do you mean, babe? Are you going the final exam questions? Like, are these exact questions from the final exam? No, but they're very, very, very similar. Is that what you mean? No problem. Okay, so what you're going to do here is for binomial expansion, you're going to look at this term that's up here. Pascal's triangle, you need to have access to a Pascal's triangle. You can either A, write it down, or B, have it pulled up, right? Okay, I don't expect you to have it memorized, but you need to have some way to have it pulled up. You need all the way down to the 8th row. So this is only to the 5th row. So make sure that you have it all the way down to the 8th row, at least. Okay, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to draw out this box with 3 rows always. And then in this case, we're going to have 4 columns. The reason why we're going to have 4 columns is because in the 3rd row, where it has the number 3, there are 4 numbers that are going to go up here at the top. Okay. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take the first term that you have, so this 2a, and you're going to put it in this box, and you're going to raise it to the 3rd power. And I'm getting that 3 from this exponent up here. And then I'm going to count down all the way to 0. So 2, 1, 0. Okay. And then I'm going to go all the way back up. So then you're going to do 3b to the 0 power, 3b to the first, second, third, yeah. 3, 2, 1, blast off, all the way up. Yep. Okay. And then you're going to multiply all the way down. Okay, so here's a recap. You take the number that's up here. That's the row you're going to use. You draw out your boxes based on how many numbers are in that row. You're always going to have 3 rows, though, here. And so now we're going to multiply straight down. Anything raised to the 0 power is 1. So you kind of just like ignore that. But 1 times 2 to the 3rd power, which is 8. A to the 3rd, which is a to the 3rd, times 1 gives you 1. 3 times 2 to the 2nd, which is 4. 3 times 4 gives you 12. And then 12 times 3 gives you 36 with a squared b. 3 times 2 to the first, a, which is 6a, times 3 squared, which is 9, b squared. So 6 times 9 is going to give me 54 a b to the 2nd. And 1 times 3 to the 3rd, which is 27 b cubed. Okay, so if the question says, hey, what's the expanded form of this? This is what your answer is going to be. Now, there are 2 questions over binomial expansion. Sorry, there is 2 questions. Okay, the other question is going to say, what is the 3rd term of this mess, right? So the 3rd term would be this 54ab squared. And that's what you would put. Okay, so one of the questions is going to ask for the expanded form, and then the other question is going to say, hey, what's the 3rd term of this? What is it going to look like? Okay. One thing to keep in mind is that if, let's say, for instance, right here, this was a negative, you would have to include that in here. So negative 3 to the 3rd power is negative 27. Negative 3 to the 2nd power would be positive 9. Okay, so you just got to keep that in mind when you're raising something to whatever power. Okay. Questions over this? Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go over composition of functions. This is the last little bit that I'm going to do before I just kind of take random questions. Compositions. I think we struggled with this just a little bit. So let's do that. Yep. Okay. So if I have f is x plus 3 and g is 2x plus x squared, and I said find f of g of x. What you're going to do is you're going to take f and write it out, because that f's the first one, right? So I'm going to write f out. And now you're going to take what g is and plug him in for this x. So this will be 2x plus x squared plus 3. So notice how I just took what g is and I plugged it in where x is. I'm just like switched them. Okay. And then my final answer is going to be this written out in standard form. Now, if they said, what is g of f of x? Then you're going to take what g is and plug f in for all of the x's. So this will be 2 times x plus 3 plus x plus 3 squared. And then you would simplify. So you would distribute. So this would be 2x plus 6. And over here, you're going to multiply x plus 3 times x plus 3. So that's going to give me x squared plus 6x plus 9. And again, we would write this out in standard form. So x squared plus 8x plus 15. Okay, so notice how we still took the same two equations, but if it's written one way, then we do something, and if it's written the other way, we do something else. Okay, so you just have to make sure that you're paying attention to how it's written. Is it f of g or g of f? Okay. Exams start on Tuesday. So you'll take your first period exam on Tuesday, and then you'll have the rest of the day normal. And I think the schedule is posted on the school website if it's not on your teacher's page. But tomorrow is a regular day. Okay. Right. I think that's all I have for like anything I didn't miss on those first problems that I did. Nope, I hit it all. Okay, so now I'm just gonna kind of take individual questions. Oh no, there's one thing I wanna talk about before, because everybody gets this notation wrong. So if the question was like, hey, what is f of 2 equal to 0? And it said, which of the following must f of x be divisible by? Oh, wow, can't spell divisible. Divisible by. So this question, and this is one of the questions that it's somewhat on the final exam. All you're going to do is you're going to say x, and you're going to switch the sign of this guy who's in here, minus 2. Okay, so it must be divisible by x minus 2. Okay, I'm going to check my chat. Test is on SchoolNet is due tonight, right? Yes. So you have your first period exam on Tuesday. That's one test. And then on Wednesday, you'll have 2. So you'll have your second and third. Okay, so it'll be 2-hour blocks. So you'll have half a day. And then on Thursday, you'll do 4th and 5th. And then on Friday, you'll do 6th and 7th. Okay. Cool.
Is the performance final? I mean, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Is the final exams timed?
I think we've given you 2 hours to do it. So you're supposed to complete it within that 2-hour block, because you have to be on the Zoom and have your video turned on. Yes. Just make sure you remind your teacher. Just send them an individual message though. The test should only take you about an hour, and we've allotted 2 hours for you to take it, so you should be all right. AKS 15. So AKS 15 isn't on there. So you should be all right, but I can still go over it. Oh wait, I might have lied to you. Nope, never mind. Nope. Nope, AKS 15 is not on there. Is there something else you want to go over? And the AKS that are on here, let me go back to that screen. Okay, so look at these AKS and let me know which one you want me to go back over, talk about, have questions. yes. Since most of the people are going to be at home, yeah, you can use your notes. I'd prefer y'all not to use PhotoMath because I'll be honest with you, PhotoMath is it's got some errors when it was written in its code, so just be mindful of that. So yes, you are allowed to use notes.
Personally, I need to go over AKS 31 and AKS 10.
Okay. What is that gonna look like? Here. Okay, so okay, so 31 and 10. Okay, so 31 is going to look like vertical and horizontal asymptotes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I don't get those at all.
Okay. All right, so if okay, so these are word problems with 31. So this is 31. Okay. And so you're going to have a graph and it's going to go like this. Okay. And let's say you're looking at car cost per year. And these are the number of years. And this is the average cost in dollars. Okay. And let's say that a new car costs you let's say that you're like renting out a car and it costs you $1,250 plus a $50 fee per year to pay for it, its use. Okay, like let's say that this is $50 for your insurance. Okay, the question is going to be something along the lines of which of the following best explains the graph as it approaches the horizontal asymptote. Okay, so remember, horizontal asymptote goes side to side, right? Okay, so if it started all the way up here and it was like 1250, okay, and it starts going down, right? And we're having in 2, 4, 6, all the way out to 20 years or so, okay? And let's say it levels off at y equals 50. Okay, so your horizontal asymptote is y equals 50, right? So with that being said, what does that y equals 50 actually represent? And your choices are the average cost of the car is at least $50. The average cost is at most $50. Or the average cost will eventually be 50. Or the longer the car lasts, the closer to the average annual cost it will be. Okay, so I just want y'all to take a moment, look at those answer choices, and then let's talk about it. Yes, I am. I'm gonna, after I stop going over stuff, I'll hit stop record and then I'll post it on eClass. or I'll send it to the other teachers and post it on eClass. Okay. All right, so what does that horizontal asymptote of y equals 60 or y equals 50 actually represent? Then I'm going to hit pause on the recording. Well, we know that the average cost of the car is at least 50. That, I mean, yeah, we're paying $50 a year, right? Average cost is at most 50? No, I mean, there's some other things that go into play when we're, you know, buying a car and having it for multiple years. You have to have your oil changed, that kind of thing. The average cost will eventually be 50. Well, yeah, but not really, because again, like we have to pay for like gas, we got to pay for oil change, tune up, insurance, that kind of thing. So the car costs more than that, right? What about D? The longer the car lasts, the closer to the average annual cost it will be. Well, as you have a car longer and longer, right, it's a little bit cheaper and it's going to get closer to 50 because you're not having to pay for all the new stuff. It's kind of like when you buy a house, like you have to pay that mortgage and everything, and then eventually you own the house, right? And then you don't have to like pay as much anymore. You'd have to pay for like electrical bills and that kind of thing. So this answer is going to be D. The longer the car lasts, the closer, and I think that's the key part, closer to the average annual cost it will be. So it's getting closer and closer and closer to this y equals 50, which is what that horizontal asymptote actually represents. Okay. Philip, you good on that one?
Yeah, I'm good now.
Okay. Let's look at one more and kind of keeping the same thought process. Let's say, because there's one more on AKS 31. So, all right, let's say that we're on a trip, okay? And we're doing 500-mile trip. We're going to Nashville, okay? All right, so this is going to be the travel time. And then this is going to be the speed or miles per hour. Okay, and let's say we got this like awesome little doodad. So this is 20, 18, 16, blah, 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 all the way down. Okay, let's say we went from 0 to 100 real quick. Okay, and which of the following best represents y equals 0? The vertical asymptote, y equals 0, at y equals 0. Okay, so I'm gonna write those statements out really quick. So A, if the vehicle is traveling fast enough, it would take 0 hours to travel 500 miles. If the vehicle is traveling slow enough, it would take 500 hours to travel 500 miles. Or as the vehicle increases speed, the time decreases to 0. Or or D, sorry, it's a little sloppy. As the vehicle slows towards 0 miles per hour, time increases without bound. So it just like goes on forever. So take a moment, read those over. Take a moment. All right. Send me what you think it is individually. Okay, so A is definitely, there you go. Okay. All right, so A is definitely not going to happen, right? Because it can't take 0 hours to travel 500 miles. I mean, unless we're doing like time travel, right? If it's going slow enough, it would take 500 hours to travel 500 miles. So you would be crawling at like a rate of 1 mile per hour. That would be horrible. Okay. I can get from here to Nashville in about, I think that's like 300 and something miles or so. I think it might be 400. I don't remember. But basically, I can do that in about 6 hours. So that just kind of seems unreasonable. And so as the vehicle increases with speed, the time decreases to 0. Well, that's not true, right? It's not going to be 0. It's not happening, right? Okay. As the vehicle slows towards 0 miles per hour, so as you're like getting to the place that you need to be, the time increases without bound. Okay, so as you're going to 0 miles per hour, if you're not going anywhere, then it's going to take you forever to get to wherever you're going, right? That's why it's saying as y equals 0. So y equals 0. And it's talking about the vertical asymptote at y equals 0. So it's like this guy. So it's as it's going to, you're not going anywhere because you're not traveling, then you're increasing that time. Okay, so yes, it is D. Good job. All right, so 10, AKS 10. AKS 10 is talking about zeros, okay? So we're talking about solutions. Let's call it that, solutions, okay? And these questions, you're gonna have to use the quadratic formula, okay? Or you can graph it. Yes, Philip, you were right. Yeah. Okay, so what is the solution to the quadratic equation? That's what this question is going to be like. What is the solution to quadratic? And the quadratic that we're going to pick is, now remember, quadratic equation is this. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So now I'm going to plug in. So this is A, B, and C. So I'm going to have -8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times -4 all over 2 times 1. Okay, so I've got -8 stuck on the outside. 8 squared is going to give me 64. -4 times -4 times 1 is going to give me +16 divided by 2. I'm going to simplify what's underneath this radical, and that's going to give me negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 80 divided by 2. And so now I'm going to simplify. Okay, so I'm going to take 80 and list out the factors. Let's do 8 and 10. So this will be 4 and 2, and 5 and 2. This will break down into 2 and 2. Remember, you can only exit the radical if you have an exit buddy. So this will be negative 8 plus or minus 2 is going to come out, and then another 2 is also going to come out. And then 5 is going to be left underneath the radical. So this will become negative 8 plus or minus 4 square root of 5 divided by 2. And now I can simplify what's on the outside. So I can divide everything by 2. And so my final answer is going to be this. I wish I didn't have it so messy. Okay. Biggest thing is you need to know what the quadratic equation is going to be. Okay. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that you need to know about 10. If it asks what are the roots, you're going to do the same thing. Okay. Questions on this one? Okay. One thing I do want to touch on that I think is going to be a little challenging is if I had the question, P of X is this. And I said, what's the remainder if you got X minus 1? I'm sorry, X minus 2. So you're going to divide this by X minus 2 in this case. So again, you can do this either 2 ways. You can do synthetic or you can do long. I'm going to do synthetic because my coefficient is 1 on that guy. But the first thing I'm going to do is make sure this is in standard form. So I'm going to multiply this out. So I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to get 8x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 plus 10x minus 5. I'm going to combine my like terms. So that will become x squared. These two will combine to give me 8 plus 10x, which will give me 18x. 16 minus 5 is going to give me 11. So now I'm going to actually divide by x minus 2. So I'm taking this and dividing by x minus 2. So I'm going to change the sign. I'm going to list out my coefficients. I bring down the first one, multiply, add, multiply, add. And I'm going to take one less of this exponent, so that'll be just x plus 20 plus 51 divided by x minus 2. So the question is, what is the remainder after this? So your answer would be 51, because that's your last number over here. Okay. Okay, questions on that? Okay, I'm gonna hit stop share, or I'm gonna hit stop recording, just so y'all can ask questions if you want to, and they can be questions about anything, or no, there's not. Yeah, there's no curve on the exam. Sorry. I'm also gonna take a screenshot of all the people who came, just so I can let